Welcome to the Backstage Leadership Conversations, a podcast series by the Digital Tourism Think Tank in collaboration with Abu Dhabi Business Events Week, organised by Abu Dhabi's Culture and Tourism Department. I'm Nick Hall, and in this series, we'll explore the post-pandemic trends in business travel, focusing on key areas such as technology, impact, sustainability, and recovery. Ready to jump into today's episode? Stay tuned to learn more about how Abu Dhabi is helping the MICE sector to thrive. In this episode, we'll dive into the BLeisure economy and looking at how that's transforming, as well as looking at some of the trends that we're observing, together with James Rees, President of the ICCA, the International Congress and Convention Association, and Ajay Bhojwani, Managing Director at MCI Middle East. The ICCA is the global community and knowledge hub for the international association meetings industry and represents the main specialists in organising, transporting and accommodating international meetings and events. They offer unrivaled data, exposure and business opportunities for their extensive network of members. James has 25 years of experience in event organisation and large-scale venue management and is now responsible for sales and marketing strategy for the conference and events division of XL London, globally recognised in the congress and convention industry. MCI is a global engagement and marketing agency with more than 30 years' experience. They help their clients to engage their audiences by creating unforgettable experiences, designing strategies and applying creativity to support organisational growth. Ajay currently works with the MCI Group as the Regional Managing Director for the Middle East and North Africa. He runs an operation in the region that spans more than 20 countries, running annually more than 200 events, whilst MCI Group globally has more than 60 offices in 32 countries with over 2,000 people spread globally. Both James and Ajay play very different roles in the industry, despite being deeply rooted in the same sector. I invited James to reflect on the trends and developments of the industry in recent times and asked him for his opinion about the recovery of the sector.
Well, I've seen, and I've been ICCA president now for 4 years, and in those 4 years, much of which has been marred by the COVID pandemic, a real change, if you like, in organisational behaviours and the needs of associations, and certainly the demands now for what they're looking for their events are trends that we were starting to see even before COVID, but seem to have been fast forwarded during COVID. And those 3 trends, I would say, are around the need for sustainability, for legacy, and then also for access to markets to serve the mission of those associations. So there's a higher demand and a more in-the-round demand from those sort of organisations when they're coming to venues or PCOs to really serve their mission.
Looking at trends within the industry, we can see that knowledge and education have turned into big incentives to attract in-person events, which is causing demand for these types of events to grow. I wanted to see with Ajay where he's observed the biggest challenges in what consumers are currently demanding and also seeking to get out of as the event experience starts to evolve into one which is pivoted much more around education and learning.
Absolutely, and I think it kind of goes both ways. Like James mentioned, the associations are wanting to serve the mission, and they're wanting to go into emerging markets, the untapped economies where they feel there is a demand for their products. And if you go down from a market perspective, as these markets are developing and the need for professional development is getting even more and more busier, as people are kind of coming out or still kind of going into this new pandemic era. They are either moving destinations, they are moving jobs, which also kind of pushes them to kind of further enhance their skills, whether it's through certifications, training programs, or education programs. And that is where the real push from an association perspective comes, and this is what they do. So it's kind of, addressing that demand.
Going back to James, I wanted to talk about the opportunities around leisure tourism and the opportunities to connect this with business travel through concepts such as nomadic working or so-called workations, which have grown a lot since and, of course, during the pandemic. It is important to understand how this is causing a shift in the way business is done. So I invited James to reflect a little on this and to perhaps share his view on how this in itself is impacting the MICE sector.
It's a great question, and obviously we've seen during COVID, everyone talks about the P word, pivoting, and many MICE organisers have pivoted to a virtual or hybrid option. And in my experience, I believe, whilst I have interest in face-to-face coming back strongly, all the trends are showing it is coming back strongly. And whilst we're talking to clients who are saying how successful their virtual events were, when you really drill down to the legacy, the knowledge transfer, and the networking that was created perhaps during 2020 and 21, they are admitting it's not the same. The outputs, the outcomes have not been the same. So the value of face-to-face is undoubtedly being seen as something back to the future in some ways. But I think what we're also seeing is a need to really improve the digitization of events, which can help sort of extend the lifespan of a 3 or 4 day congress. Actually using digital means you can have more of a build-up and more of a legacy with that transfer of knowledge post-event. And also the changing behaviours of the future generations. We live in a world of Apple and Netflix and Amazon and wanting to view, say, television on demand. So there's a need for certain organisations to think about on-demand education or on-demand knowledge share. So there's a changing face, if you like, to how person-to-person events are going to be managed in the future. But undoubtedly, that sense of camaraderie, of belonging to an organisation, particularly if you're looking at associations, when you get everybody into one venue or one room, is recognised as something that you simply can't do through a computer screen.
After the pandemic, in-person experiences have transitioned into something that could almost be considered as a premium, but which was previously taken for granted. With remote work expanding massively in the last couple of years, meeting in person has become something truly unique and special, something meaningful for event participants. But what is happening from the organizer's perspective? I asked Ajay for his opinion regarding the changes he's witnessed in how people work and interact when coming together around business events.
I mean, from a talent perspective, absolutely. I think, we, as much as we are on the front side, bringing people together, even internally, we feel the same. I think when people come together, the magic happens. That's when your great ideas are formed and all that. It's not that we've learned through the pandemic that it's not that you can't do it offline and remotely, but it's a whole different process. Things come out, but maybe, teamwork is probably not the same. It's not easy to keep the whole morales going. So we do see that, but you still need to find the right balance. And I think people are also getting used to saying, I would like my own space. I would like to do things at my own time. So it's as an organization, I think you need to find that right balance that works for your talents as well as what works for you as well. And I think the more easier you can find that balance, that's the best output to get. I mean, in this part of the world, at least, we've always had pre-pandemic 100% workforce in the office. From there on, we today have someone sitting in Philippines, we have someone sitting in India, we have someone sitting in Oman, and these are talents who've moved and are now saying, you know what, this is good. I'm okay to work from my home country and still do what I was doing. And I think we've also kind of now found that sweet spot that works for them, works for us. And I think in the future, at least for the few years, this is how it's going to be. People like it to do it at their own time and space.
One of the benefits brought by online events is that it has allowed us to work with the idea of distributed teams, with people from all around the world being able to connect and still create a sense of being together as a team. Nonetheless, physical events provide a really unique opportunity to connect people and even connect people from within the same organization to get to know each other and to really build good, strong, bonded relationships. With all of the conversation taking place around the connection between leisure and bleisure and how the MICE sector plays a key role in connecting these different types of visitors, I asked James for his view on the trends that will dominate this new period that we're entering. So, how does he expect demand for this blended experience to develop?
One thing I'm learning as you talk more and more to clients as we come out of COVID is a realization. I would say almost a flight to quality when you think about events themselves. There's a realization that someone in London, where I work, actually doesn't need to fly to New York for a 2-hour meeting and fly back again, which is something that business people might have done before COVID. With Teams and with Zoom, you can have a basic meeting over those different media, but what we are seeing is a real focus on quality of experience, particularly not only in the association world but in the corporate world. As corporates come out of COVID and they're wanting to influence stakeholders and potential customers, they need to. Customers won't simply revert to type and go back to what they were doing before COVID and go to every single, whether it's a trade show or conference. That event has to be relevant for their day-to-day role, for their personal experience, because whilst we're coming out of COVID has not vanished. People want to be able to go to places where they're not sort of cocooned in an underground hotel meeting room. They want natural daylight, they want fresh air, they want a program designed so that they can mix with the other delegates, so that they can perhaps take half an hour out and dial back into the office. Technology needs to be able to allow people to have that interconnectivity at all times during these events. And so what we're seeing is that need for focused business events, but with the focus not only on the business side, but the experiential side. And the destinations that are being successful are the ones able to offer that mix of pleasurable pleasure, if that's a phrase, to really enhance their experience of the event and how they would view that brand if it's a corporate, post-event, or that association after the Congress.
Ajay has extensive experience about Abu Dhabi, having seen how the destination has evolved over the years and massively enriched his experience. With this, I wanted to get his thoughts on where he believes the competitive level of Abu Dhabi sits against other destinations, particularly considering the events and the wider leisure offer.
Sure, I think Abu Dhabi has come a long way from, we've been running this business here for 15 years. I've lived in the region for over 25 years, and we've seen Abu Dhabi come really a long way. It started its positioning being the cultural hub for the region, and there was a whole focus, which still is. It's not that it's gone away, but there's still a big priority where culture is concerned, and the whole museums, which is why you see all these museums being built here, and that's kind of the future, what they would like to look at. But while they're doing that on one side, there is a whole focus that they have built through the Yas Island and the theme parks and all, which is focused on family holidays and kind of all of that stuff, which is completely on the leisure side. And I think if you look at those two components, which are so varied apart, but at the same time, when you kind of bring it together and you put the whole package as a MICE product, I think that's exactly what's kind of giving you, whether it's business and leisure combined, or it's a great convention combined with leisure at the end with your family. So there are a lot of ways now you could combine the product and the whole way it's sold across. And I think that's really what makes it quite unique at the moment.
Turning to James as a visitor to Abu Dhabi, I wanted to know more about the outcomes he's witnessed from attending the Abu Dhabi Business Events Week, emphasizing the impact that it's had in helping him to establish crucial partnerships and facilitating those critical conversations that can only happen in person.
Well, you're right that I'm from London, but importantly, XL London is part of the ADNEC group of companies. So our owners based here in Abu Dhabi. So we have a strong affinity to this part of the world and a natural connection through that ownership. And I've been fortunate to be to Abu Dhabi a number of times in the past, and certainly because I haven't been since before COVID. And you can see the investment that has been put in place here during that time. And I think the Abu Dhabi Business Events Week is a great opportunity for all of the stakeholders in Abu Dhabi that are seeking to gain more MICE, are in a fantastic position now to be really sharing knowledge and developing partnerships that will then mean they're more successful as with the bidding. And there's been some amazing winning bids in recent times for future years. So one of the things that I think can be underestimated as well is the importance of Abu Dhabi as the centre of government for the UAE. And actually for many organisations, that proximity to government, particularly corporates, but also for medical associations where they're wanting to really drive their mission in this region. Access to government is an underestimated asset. And I think Abu Dhabi, with the work that's going on here during Abu Dhabi Business Events Week and the increasing awareness across government departments of the importance of business events, can only really steer us to one conclusion, and that is a very bright future for Abu Dhabi in this market.
To round off this insightful conversation with James and Ajay, I asked Ajay to share some thoughts on what the future of Abu Dhabi may look like, based on its unique proposition and the characteristics that make it more competitive than any other destination.
Sure. I think as if I just focus on the MICE component and as a product for that, I think like James mentioned as well, there is a huge investment that the government's putting in. So you see a lot of infrastructure. We've got a new airport coming up. We've got more hotels opening. So there's a big priority on the core infrastructure. And then in addition to that, whether it's add-ons from what you could do in a city, right from restaurants to more added activities, I think that's all being added as well. And then comes the last component, which is programs like these, the Business Events Week. And I think that's just pushing all the stakeholders, not only to kind of up their game, but also to come together as Team Abu Dhabi and then kind of work together and making sure we are pushing more bids out as a team together. There are more events coming. And then, of course, not just international events, there is also focus on homegrown events and exhibitions, which is what we heard in yesterday's session as well. The government's pushing for that as well. So overall, I think there is a lot of focus in multiple directions leading to one bigger objective, which is making sure Abu Dhabi is right out there, being seen and hosting some of these big events and exhibitions.
From listening to James and Ajay, I was able to get a better understanding of how the BLeisure market has been transforming and, of course, how it has been transforming the landscape of both business travel and leisure, as well as getting a much better understanding on the current trends that we're seeing throughout the industry. Seeing how Abu Dhabi is maximizing its investment to take advantage of those trends helps us to identify some of the clear reasons that position Abu Dhabi as one of the most competitive destinations in the MICE sector globally. In the next episode, I'll be interviewing Senthil Gopinath, president of the ICCA, with whom I will be deep diving on the question of post-pandemic trends and looking at how they're transforming the offer globally.